Hi everyone. Today I'm going to cover tips for buying property from NRI, which is non-resident Indian. And why it is important is because I bought a property from NRI and I saw there are a lot of processes which are complex and different in case if you buy property from a resident. So it is just that when you're buying property from non-resident Indian, you have to be extra careful and it takes some extra time to buy that. Maybe if you're getting a good deal, good price, and that is why you're considering buying property. So you should consider all of these factors that I am sharing here. I hope these will help you. So let's get started. Another thing is I've given important links of all the other videos that I've made during this process that you'll need. I'll paste the links of these videos in the description as well as you can see it in my playlist too. So these are all the things that you'll have to do and I'll cover when we are going through this video. So you can find these details and I'll paste this in the video description. So, first is before buying the property. That is the most important part. That before buying the property, what is it that you have to do? So, first of all, it is that congratulations, you've shortlisted a property. It takes a lot of time to finalize a property. Now that you finalized a property, you should do your due diligence. Even if you're buying a regular property, some of these points might be applicable, but especially when you're buying it from an NRI, these are some additional things that you should consider. So again, like I said, these some things might be common to resident and non-resident. So make sure you get duplicate papers or a photocopy or Xerox of the papers so that you could get them verified. You could get a verification, a legal assessment done. That is also important. You should consider it is not necessary that you have to buy a loan to get your property verified. If you're not buying a loan, you can just pay some 3 to 4 to 5,000 rupees to get your legal verification for papers done. They will go through all the papers and they'll tell you if something is missing or additionally that is needed. So this happens automatically if you're taking a loan, but if you're not, make sure you pay this 3 to 5,000 rupees to get this assessment done even before you pay any token amount. So you can show it to the loan team as well. So what happens is if you're applying for the loan, you can also show a photocopy of all these documents. They would do this for free if you are applying for a loan. They would just do a preliminary check. Obviously, they will send it to their legal team. They will charge again 3 to 5,000 also. But the people who process loans, they're usually aware and they'll tell you initially only, even before starting a loan application, if there are some documents that are missing. So this is a very important step, especially in case of NRIs. Again, make sure is there any existing loan. If there is a loan, get the loan account number, probably get the loan account statements. You can go and double check, verify with the bank that the papers or documents are genuine and there are no disputes with respect to bank or loan not repaid or some of the past installments not being paid. So make sure you get this checked as well. If this is the case, this might just add more time to it, but you should be aware, you should be careful about this. Again, make sure all the chain of documents available. So chain of documents means starting when this apartment was first given out. So flat buyer agreement, buyer and seller agreement, and then if there have been multiple owners previously, then get all the chain. The make sure that you get all the chain of documents that is available. Now, in case of NRI specifically, there are exceptions of some specific countries where NRIs are based out of those specific countries like Sri Lanka, etc. You need RBI approval. I have not covered that process here. You can find that or let me know if you need me to cover that as well. But make sure that if the NRI is based out of these specific exception countries, which you can find on Google, or let me know in the comments, I can provide that information. You need to get RBI approval as well. Now, the most important thing is that the seller should be available for making that transaction. Now, NRIs are usually staying out of India, so they must have a plan to visit India or especially to come sell this property off. Or what they'll usually do is they'll give a power of attorney to someone who they know. It could be a friend, relative, anybody. And then in this, what you have to do is you have to check that power of attorney is valid. Now, there could be scams, there could be fake documents related to this. So what you should also make sure is that even if the power of attorney say was given during buying the property or a year back, or this they gave this power of attorney but it expired and the property didn't sell in that time, you would have to ask them to issue a fresh power of attorney so that you don't get into any legal hassles later. Then next is there are two different types of power of attorneys. One is special power of attorney and one is general power of attorney. General power of attorney is where you are authorizing or the NRI is authorizing the person, friend or relative or family to do anything on their behalf. That is a general power of attorney. Special power of attorney is where they are assigning a person specifically for selling this property or for a specific purpose. Let's say in this case it is for selling the property, then all the details of property will be mentioned, the location, address, etc., etc. That yes, the NRI is authorizing this person to do this specific task only, right? So make sure you verify that. If a new power of attorney has to be created, preference should be a special power of attorney, right, than a general power of attorney. But a general power of attorney or generic power of attorney is also applicable and should do the purpose. Make sure before buying, before paying any token amount, a lot of NRIs back out on this. Make sure that the money will go into NRIs, NRO, or specific designated accounts only. The money cannot go into the power of attorney's bank account. Otherwise, you could get into some legal hassles later. So do make sure you clarify that. They give you a cancelled check copy of their NRO account. If you want, you can go ahead and get it double check from the bank or the person who's doing your loan as well, that this bank account is okay, and you will issue a check to this person's bank account, or the entire proceeds can go into this bank account. So make sure this is double verified. Then confirm on lower TDS reduction. This is also where a lot of NRIs stop the deals, where so in case of a resident, for example, you're only supposed to deduct 1% TDS, right? But in case of NRIs, you are supposed to deduct, depending on the value of property, somewhere between 15 to 25% or 23.92%, as you might have heard, on TDS on their property sale value. So for example, if you are selling a property worth 1 crore, you have to deduct 23 lakhs as tax, right? Which means the seller is getting only 77 lakhs. So when you tell this to buy a seller, sometimes a lot of sellers also might not be aware, or you get into a deal and you could get stuck later where the seller is asking to deduct lesser amount, but then you could get into legal hassles. So what the law or the government has given a provision that in case the seller does not want the full amount of TDS 23% to be deducted, then he can apply for a lower TDS to the tax authorities, where he says that yes, I am not in, I am out of India and I should be liable to a lower tax, say 10%, and I, instead of 23%, the tax should be deducted at 10%. So they will apply for that. The seller or seller CA has to apply for that lower TDS deduction. All they'll need is your TAN. So when they are applying for that lower TDS deduction, it will be against your TAN. So you might also get an email. They might also get an email. So at this stage, before signing anything, all you have to do is confirm with them. Later, you'll have to get that certificate as well. So do make sure this is clarified with the NRIs or with the brokers that you're dealing with. Then the sellers must have PAN card. So, if there are two sellers, right, if they purchased a property a lot of years back, then make sure if there are more than one seller, all the sellers should have their PANs available. So do get their PAN card or get a confirmation that yes, you will have to provide your PAN card copies. Then another thing, what you should do is check on no due certificate from society. So this is again not applicable just to a non-resident. So in case you're buying a property, if it is in a gated apartment society, just try to go and check whether there are any electricity or maintenance or clubhouse dues that should be paid. The person is not defaulting on anything. Make sure you check with them, tell them that we would need a NDC from the society, and this is must to get your registry also. Another important thing is I lost couple of months in this. So if the apartment that you're buying is empty, then what you can do is as soon as you sign the agreement to sell, I'll cover what the agreement to sell is later, but as soon as you sign it, you do not need to wait for 2 or 3 months to get your registry done. You can check with them if you can get at least designing or renovation started earlier, because if you're going for an interior designer, they take 2 to 3 months only to plan that. So and if you want to get some civil work or another work done, why to lose on those 2 3 months if you're planning to move into it immediately? So you should check with the seller that after paying the token amount, is it okay if you document it in the document agreement to sell that you can start renovation after the ATS? So these are some points you have to make sure you have discussed this with the NRI before entering into any agreement with them. Once you've checked on all of this, there is a mutual agreement, then let's go to the during process, which is what happens, what do you have to do once you finalize those things. So the next thing that will come up is you'll have to pay token money and sign the agreement to sell. So agreement to sell is that you both the parties are agreeing to sell each other. The seller is agreeing to sell you the property and you are agreeing to pay the full amount. So you have to pay a token amount which could be 10 or 20%. So don't be alarmed even in case of NRIs. For example, if you're buying a property worth 10 crores, you would have to pay 10, 15 or 20 lakhs in advance, depending upon your agreement. Even if it's lower amount that you agreed on, that is also good as well. So the next step will be when you pay the token money, you will have to sign the agreement to sell. Now make sure you should pay equally to all the sellers from all the buyers. So what this means is if there's, let's say one buyer, but there are two sellers, that one buyer should pay equal amount. Let's say you're paying 10 lakh advance to 5 lakh to each of those sellers. If there are two sellers, if there are two buyers and two sellers, then also make sure the amount is equally distributed. For example, one buyer pays half amount to seller A and then half to seller B, or one buyer pays it to the half amount to seller A and then another buyer pays it to seller B. So this is what you need to make sure that you're paying equally to all the sellers. Then what happens is when you sign the agreement to sell, what will happen is the original agreement to sell will remain with the seller. You get a copy which is okay at this point. You need this copy for processing your loan or other clarification documents, also as a proof that yes, you've paid this amount and now they are legally bound to sell you this property within a few months. The agreement to sell would have a few clauses. For example, when is the next installment due, within how many months this purchase should complete. Now this is also a very important point that you could add in your agreement to sell, that the entire agreement should finish between 3 months. Now even if applying for a TAN or PAN or power of attorney takes time, you should tell them that if it does not happen within 3 months, there could be some penalty clauses, or that you would have to mutually agree that the seller has to refund the amount if the delay is from seller, if the delay is from buyer. You could add those clauses. It's not necessary that those are added. These are understood. But if you want to get clarified or if you want to get included these clauses, you can get these clauses included in agreement to sell, because in case of NRIs, some of these things like applying for a power of attorney, applying for a lower tax deduction certificate, applying for a TAN card, etc., might take some time than you originally planned for. Then again, like I said earlier, the agreement that you have with the NRI, that you are paying into their NRO account and not the power of attorney holder. He is just executing, signing on their behalf, but the money should be received in the actual person's or actual seller's bank accounts. Then again, another important thing is when you are even paying the token amount, you should deduct TDS on each installment, which means if let's say today you're paying 5 or 10 lakh, after 15 days you're paying another 5 or 10 lakhs, the TDS amount should be deducted on that amount that you are paying. But now let's say the seller has not applied for a lower TDS certificate yet. What you should do is you have to apply the full 23% or whatever is applicable as to the bracket of property, 50 lakhs to 1 crore or greater than 1 crore. Then you should deduct 23.92. Next time when you are paying the next installment, you could either reduce that amount, right, if the lower TDS certificate has come, or the seller can get a refund later. But you should deduct then TDS either at the full amount, or if the seller already has a lower TDS certificate, then you should deduct according to that. If say he's got a 10%, then you should deduct 10%. So make sure when you pay this, so there are dates for deducting TDS, which is let's say 7th of every next month. So if you are paying today on 15th of September, then by 7th of October, you should deduct the TDS and deposit into the government account. Now, let's say you've signed the agreement to sell, right? Then you should apply for a loan if needed. The chain of documents that I mentioned that you agreed with earlier, you are supposed to get a copy of the entire document. Some people hold back some of the documents, might give you just a conveyance deed or something. But at this stage, once you've signed the agreement to sell, this is the purpose, that you can get a copy of all the documents so that you can get verified for your loan or otherwise. Um, Again, in case of NRIs specifically, The buyers have to apply specific separately for TANs if they're not existing. So if you're a business person, you're already deducting TDS, then you already have a TAN card. But sometimes for a salaried person who do not have a TAN, who do not deduct taxes, you have to apply for TAN. And what does it mean by separately is if you are two people who are buying a property, if it is yourself and your mother or father, and then you or yourself or your spouse, then TAN cards need to be applied separately for each of you. You cannot deduct TDS from one person. You can do that, but you could get into hassles or legal troubles later, and make sure both the sellers have PANs. So when you're deducting TAN, it is deducted on the basis of the seller's PANs. The next is, let's say you've paid the money, you've applied for loan, you've applied for TANs. Now you have to register on e-filing website to pay the tax and then file the returns. Note that for each of those steps, the descriptions, the links that I shared earlier, I would be adding them in the description. So for example, how do you apply for a TAN? How do you register for a new TAN? How do you register on e-filing website? How do you file taxes? How do you file returns? All of these videos I have already separately covered, and then I am making this video, so you can refer to those if you need. Then once you have applied for TAN, once you registered on the e-filing website, next is you have to deduct TDS. For example, if your property value is greater than 1 crore, then you're supposed to deduct 20% TDS plus the surcharge on the transaction value for NRI. Now, sometimes people might get confused. Do I have to deduct TDS only on gain or the capital gain or long-term, short-term capital gain? But the answer to that is no. You have to deduct the TDS or tax on the full transaction value. So if you're buying the property for 1 crore, the capital gain for salary is 10 lakhs. The tax has to be deducted on 1 crore and not 10 lakhs. So this TDS, what happens is deducting this TDS means you're not paying him that amount. Instead of paying him the amount, you are paying that amount to the central government on his behalf. So like I said, at the time of each installment, so if you've paid 10 lakhs today, you're paying 15 lakhs tomorrow. So 23.92% of 10 lakhs or 15 lakhs, whenever you pay, you should deduct that TDS and deposit to the government by 7th of next month. This is a key important aspect, and this will be written in the agreement to the final registry that you paid these amounts in these installments, and these were the TDS or taxes that were deducted. Again, like I said, if the seller wants lower TDS to be deducted, they have to apply for a lower TDS certificate with your TAN. So again, make sure you apply for your TAN well in advance, or even when you've shortlisted your property, if you are sure to buy it from a NRI, because this will just delay it. Otherwise, when you sign your agreement to sell, then you apply for your TAN, it will just delay your dealing, delay your timing. And as a buyer, you would ideally want to pay the entire amount and get the property in your name as soon as possible. So once the seller has applied this, then how do you deduct this TDS? Like I've said, make sure you deduct it before 7th of every month from your own account. If there are two buyers, from your two buyers' accounts is what you have to make sure that you have to deduct this TDS and deposit into central government's account. This is very important. What people forget is they will usually make the transactions, they'll pay the amount, they'll deduct the TDS. Then what will happen is, this is a mandatory step, which is first, as a buyer, once you've deducted this TDS, then you have to file the TDS return in Form 27Q. What this does is, right now here, you as a buyer, you have only deducted the TDS and deposited into central government's account. It does not show into the seller's account. So to link that, which means you're filing these returns so as to link it with the TDS of deductee. And in this return, what you say is, I as a buyer have deducted this TDS for this seller. And once you file this, that is when it will start reflecting in the seller's account as well. So this is mandatory. We usually forget this, and if you forget this, then there is a late filing fees that you have to pay. And this also happens because you've been following up doing this for months. You usually forget this. I have created a video already of, in case you missed this part, you're filing a late TDS return, how to do that. That also link I'll share in the description. Then you've paid the TDS, you've linked it, filed the return. Then it is also mandatory to issue a Form 16A to the seller. It is, a form or certificate stating that yes, you've deducted the TDS and you've deposited it to the central government. So in case of any mismatch or any issue that, let's say, seller is not able to see this in his account, he can always show the Form 16A issued by you or the buyer to the income tax authorities that yes, my tax was deducted and deposited, on which he can probably get a refund or show it in his return as well. The next step is the thing that you've been waiting for. You've made the payments, you've deducted the TDS, you filed the returns. These are all the steps that are for a NRI. These are additional steps. So that is why you have to be careful now getting the registration done. It is the same as you would do for a resident or a non-resident. So review the sale date, get a draft, review everything, make sure the installments and payment details, TDS details are correctly mentioned, your names are correctly mentioned, your addresses are correctly mentioned. Just do some due diligence there. Then you might have to pay a registration fees. So my property was above 1 CR, so then you would have to, I paid approximately 50K. So you would have to pay a registration fees of that. You can also pay that online. If you're not sure how to do that, let me know in comments. I can try to create a video for that as well. And then similar to paying this registration piece of 50,000 online, you would have to do a stamp duty, pay a stamp duty online of depending on your city, your state, 4, 5, 6, or 5, 6, 7% of the transaction value. So 5, 6, 7 is, 5 is percent for women only, then 6% if it's a joint property in name of a male and female. 7 is only if it is in the name of male. So if two females are also buying, then it is 5%. So make sure you pay the stamp duty of 5% of the full transaction value, the entire amount that you will be paying to the seller. 5% of that has to be paid as the stamp duty. So brokers or usually help you with that. So now this is the during process. You've got your registry done. What is it that you have to do after? So the process does not end just after the registry. Make sure you get registry papers. So you do not get the registry papers there and then. In case of loan, the bank get the originals. After a few days, they get notified. They will correct the originals. They let you know, and then you can get a copy from them. But in case it's not a loan case, make sure you go ahead and check whether the registry is done, and you can go ahead and collect it yourselves. The next step also is once you've got the registry done, you've got a copy or originals, then update the records in your society. So, get a member certificate from the society stating that yes, now the property is transferred in your name, you are the member, and then you have to get the member certificate. This is not it. So then after that, whether it's a resident or non-resident, what you have to do is, in case of property tax, the municipal corporation, this does not get automatically updated. I've already created a video of how to do this as well. So you get your name and mobile number updated in property tax. Earlier, the OTPs used to go to the original seller, but now you can update your name on mobile in property tax, and you will get the OTPs, and you can get it updated yourself online as well. This is very important so that you get important notices for paying the property taxes, and the property is also in your name. So then each year pay property taxes. So you've bought a property, now you are liable to pay property taxes as well. They're not much, but yeah, make sure you remember to pay the property taxes each year as well. I hope you found this video useful. Again, like I said, there are important links that I've already created videos on. For example, how do you apply for a TAN, and then for how do you pay for a TDS. For paying TDS, I created a video for how do you file a return under Section 234E, which is late filing. And in this case, the process changed. So you can review this video. In case that is not clear, let me know. I can try to create a separate video as well that helps. Then, I've also created a video for filing your TDS return under section, in the form 27Q. How do you register for traces on website as a deductor? All these things were a little complex if you're doing for the first time. How do you issue a form 16A, and then how do you change your name in property tax? How do you pay property tax online? All of this I've already covered, so I'll paste these links there. Now, if you were really confused whether to buy or rent a house, was also where I had created a video. And in case you decide not to buy a house and you still want to invest in the real estate, then this is real estate investment trust is what I've covered. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. That just motivates to make more good videos for you. Thank you so much for watching.